They noticed her before she even reached the training field, small frame, loose gray hoodie, boots that looked too worn to be new issue. A few recruits nudged each other, smirking. "She's lost," one laughed. "Go home, sweetheart," another shook his head and whispered loudly, "Probably here to ask where the bathrooms are." She didn't react. She simply walked onto the field with quiet, steady steps, eyes steady, posture relaxed but unmistakably disciplined. That only made the laughter grow. "Hey, you can't be here during selection week," one of the taller recruits called out. "This area's restricted." She looked at him, calm as a still lake. "I know exactly where I am." Her voice was soft, almost gentle, and that only triggered another burst of laughter. A few recruits mimicked her tone, someone whistled sarcastically. The instructor hadn't arrived yet, so the group's confidence rose unchecked. But one recruit, a young man named Carter, didn't laugh. He watched her carefully. Something about the way she stood, the way she scanned the field, the horizon, the exits, something subtle but unmistakable told him she wasn't lost at all. Before he could say anything, the instructor arrived, Master Chief Rylan, a man whose presence alone could silence a storm. He didn't shout for attention. He didn't need to. The recruits snapped to formation instantly. Except the woman. She stood behind them, quiet and unmoving. Master Chief Rylan's eyes locked on her. "You're early," he said simply. And the entire field froze. Early. Carter saw the first wave of confusion ripple through the recruits. Someone whispered, "Wait, early for what?" But no one dared ask more. The woman nodded once, "Wanted to see them before we began." Rylan stepped aside, gesturing her forward. "Recruits," he said, voice cutting through the air like steel, "meet your commanding officer for the next 12 weeks. Lieutenant Commander Elise Ward." The silence that followed was the kind that squeezes the air out of lungs. Someone actually dropped their canteen. Another recruit, one who laughed the loudest, swallowed hard enough to be heard. Elise Ward. The name circulated in military circles like legend. She wasn't just a SEAL, she was one of the most decorated officers in her field, known for rescues deep behind enemy lines, operations that had saved entire teams, and missions that were still classified even from senior officers. And she was standing there, in an old hoodie, looking like any ordinary woman who might have walked in by mistake. Elise stepped forward. "Let me be clear," she said quietly. "I don't care that you mocked me. I don't care that you assumed I didn't belong." Her eyes swept over each of them, not harsh, not angry, just honest. "What I care about is what you become." They shifted uncomfortably, but she continued, steady and controlled. "You're here because someone saw potential in you. But potential means nothing without discipline, humility, and grit. And if you can't recognize strength when it's not packaged the way you expect, you're going to fail out there long before bullets or enemies ever threaten you." Carter straightened a little taller, struck by the truth in her words. Training began brutally. Elise's methods were different from anything they'd seen. She didn't shout. She didn't demean. Instead, she demanded excellence through example. During endurance drills, she always ran beside the slowest recruit. During water survival, she dove first, emerging calm and steady, encouraging them to control fear rather than fight it blindly. Some recruits struggled. Some cried, more than once. The cold, the exhaustion, the pressure to outperform themselves every day felt impossible. The loudest recruit, the one who told her to go home, was the first to break under the weight of his own ego. During a night navigation exercise, he got lost in the woods after insisting he didn't need help. Panic set in fast. When Elise found him, shivering and ashamed, he whispered, "I thought I could handle it alone." She kneeled beside him, wrapping her jacket around his shoulders. The strongest people aren't the ones who can act alone. They're the ones who know when to work with others. He cried quietly in the dark. She didn't berate him, she just guided him back, step by step. But the hardest moment came weeks later during ocean drills. A storm rolled in faster than expected, and the waves turned vicious. Carter, who had quietly admired her from the beginning, was swept sideways by a surge of water. He struggled to swim back, muscles burning, mind spiraling into fear. Before the instructors could react, Elise dove into the water without hesitation. She reached him just as another wave slammed over their heads. Her hand clamped onto the back of his vest, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Carter, look at me." His breathing was ragged, frantic. "You're okay, I have you." But the waves were growing stronger. Elise pushed him upward, taking the brunt of the water herself. They fought the current for what felt like an eternity, inch by inch, breath by breath. When they finally reached the boat, Carter collapsed, coughing, trembling. "You saved me," he whispered. Elise shook her head. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you could." The recruits saw her differently after that. Not as a legend, not as a decorated officer, but as someone who carried strength the way others carried air, naturally, constantly, without needing to show it off. As the 12 weeks neared their end, the recruits lined up for the final review. They were stronger, sharper, more united than they had ever imagined being on day one. Elise walked the line quietly, her eyes warm with pride. "You've learned discipline," she said. "You've learned teamwork, but the most important lesson is this: never underestimate someone because they don't fit your expectations. Strength isn't loud. Skill isn't always visible. Sometimes the person you judge most harshly is the one who could save your life." The recruits bowed their heads, the memory of their first day flashing in their minds. Carter stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady, "thank you for believing we could be more than our mistakes." Elise smiled, a small, rare smile. "That's my job, but now it's yours to believe it for yourselves." Graduation day arrived. Families watched with pride as the recruits, now transformed, received their badges. Elise stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching them with the quiet satisfaction of a sculptor who finally sees the finished shape emerging from the stone. As they saluted her one last time, the loud recruit, the one who mocked her uniform, walked up nervously. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he said, voice almost breaking. "For the first day, for everything." She held his gaze. "You grew from it. That matters more than the mistake." He swallowed, nodding deeply. Carter approached next. "Will we see you again, Commander?" She adjusted her hoodie, the same old one from day one. "If you keep serving with honor, you'll find me on the field. Always." As she walked away, the recruits watched her with awe, not because of her reputation or medals, but because she had changed them from the inside out. The inspiring message settled into them like a final command. True strength never needs permission to exist. In respect, once earned, becomes a force stronger than any uniform. And none of them ever looked at anyone, man or woman, seasoned or new, the same way again.